We're really expecting that the auction will result in increase in the data connectivity speed that our citizens have right now.
Pakistan is a spectrum-starved country, and less than 300 megahertz of spectrum had been allocated.
This is not just a telecom event. It's a strategic economic decision.
The upcoming auction is essentially one step ahead when it comes to connectivity.
Pakistan is heading on to one of its most important telecom moments in years, an upcoming spectrum auction that could define the quality of our internet, the future of 5G, and the country's broader digital growth for next decade. To unpack what this really means, we are joined by an exceptional panel. We have the Honorable Federal Minister for IT and Telecommunication, Ms. Shaza Fatima Khawaja. Joining us from the global stage is Jeanette, Whyte, Head of Public Policy for Asia Pacific at the GSMA, and representing the industry, we have Aamir Ibrahim, CEO of Jazz. Together, they'll help us understand what this auction is really about and why the decision made now will shape Pakistan's digital future for years to come.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Pakistan and Counting. We have an auction season going on in Pakistan, particularly Islamabad. We recently had a major privatization, and now we have a forthcoming event, which is the Spectrum auction, which is a pretty monumental event for Pakistan's technology and telecom sector. We have an esteemed panel with us today. We've been joined by our Honorable Minister for IT and Telecom, Shaza Fatma. Assalamu alaikum, Shaza, and welcome.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you.
We have Jean Whyte. She is the Head of Public Policy and External Affairs for the APAC region for GSMA. Hi, Jeanette, and welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
And we have Mr. Aamir Ibrahim, the President and CEO of Jazz. Assalamu alaikum, Aamir, and welcome.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you.
I would love to have you set the stage for us, Shaza. Give us a sense of where we are, what is about to happen. Tell us what this auction is about. When is it expected to take place?
Thank you so much. So thank you for having us today. I think it's a great roundtable that we're having. I think that the upcoming auction is essentially one step ahead when it comes to connectivity and the whole digital nation Pakistan conversation that we keep having. And last year, we also passed the legislation as per Honorable Prime Minister's Digital Nation Pakistan vision. The fundamental architecture and the foundation of any such conversation essentially is connectivity. And lately, for the last many years, we haven't really had any serious spectrum auction, which has, and on top of it, which is also a good thing, that our internet data usage has increased by almost 25% over the last 2-3 years. And collectively, what that has done is that for a population of 240 million people with almost 70% households having access to internet, this is quite a situation. And what it has done is that it's kind of choked the spectrum and choked the connectivity situation in the country, because we're just operating on, let's say, 274 megahertz of spectrum for the whole country right now. And over the last, like I said, over the last many years, we haven't really had any serious spectrum auction. The last one was in the first one that came around for the 3G, 4G was in 2016. Then we had the last one was in 2021. And that was also a very limited spectrum auction. This time around, we're going to be auctioning almost 600 megahertz of spectrum, and two bands that are already previously being used, but most of them are new bands. And we're really expecting that the auction will result in many folds increase in the data connectivity speed that our citizens have right now, and will significantly improve the citizen experience when it comes to connectivity. And that's the end goal, essentially.
Thank you. Aamir, it would be great if you could set the stage for us for where the industry is at. How many users do we have? How is, let's say, the market share sort of split between players? In terms of data usage, in terms of speed, what per capita numbers do we have? What speed numbers do we have? Where do we rank compared to the rest of the world right now?
So Pakistan has roughly around 200 million subscribers. Like admittedly, some of them use more than one SIM. So it's a good penetration, not necessarily one of the best in the region, but certainly like more than 80%. Now we have the opportunity to not only increase the penetration of overall SIMs, but more importantly, those who are using internet. And the internet penetration in Pakistan has also been rapidly increasing since 2014 when 4G or internet, broadband internet was launched. So we have seen significant progress in the last 10 years, and now it's time for us to accelerate on that journey. And as the Minister Sahiba said, obviously our customers anticipate greater usage in their daily lives. And we have to provide that layer of connectivity, which only comes when you have larger spectrum available. Pakistan, we've all been discussing, is a spectrum-starved country, and like so far, less than 300 megahertz of spectrum had been allocated or consumed. This time, we have the opportunity of almost doubling that in one auction. So it's very progressive, and I've read the terms of the information memorandum which has been sent out. I think it's a very forward-leaning document. It's a very forward-leaning approach that the government has taken, which has gone away from looking at auctions as a one-time money-making exercise for the government, but as a long-time enabler, not only for customers, but eventually for the country. Where we stack with the rest of the countries, and specifically in the region, is not necessarily a good spot, uh, primarily because of the scarcity of the option. And you're like, you can't break the laws of physics by trying to put in too many customers in a narrow band. That's why I think there has been a lot of discussion. I'm glad to hear and see that, like we're moving forward. If you ask me, perhaps we could have done it a little bit earlier, but I think that aside, we are moving ahead surely and confidently. And I think whatever I'm seeing are steps in the right direction. And we look forward to this spectrum auction. And hopefully it boosts not only the speeds, but the productivity of the country.
Jeanette, you work with as a rep of GSMA. You work with governments. You work with telco operators across the region and your organization across the world. Tell us where we rank in terms of some key metrics that you look at, and secondly, this will also be the first time that 5G spectrums will also be auctioned. So what type of a moment is this in Pakistan's sort of story on a digital front, and what happens in other countries when you finally proliferate the complete connectivity options?
Well, as Aamir has said, if you look on a regional basis, maybe Pakistan isn't at the top of the bunch there, but this, I think, is an opportunity. The auction is pivotal because spectrum, as we've all heard, is essential fuel of the digital economy. And, it maybe for people who are listening to this think, well, what is spectrum? But it's finite, it's an invisible resource, but it carries every mobile services. And Pakistan, as we've heard, just does not have enough. If we compare with any of its regional peers, it's way below. And that has severe limitations, the gaps, the capacity gaps, impact speed, as Aamir said, and the quality of digital services. As the minister is saying, for this, if we're moving forward, we need digital services for citizens and businesses. I mean, a lot of countries have already launched 5G. Okay, but 5G is not the measure of necessarily of where a country is. I would say, from GSMA, we look, and the minister's already mentioned this, is about a digital nation. Where is Pakistan as a digital nation? So GSMA does have a report. We evaluate countries in Asia Pacific on where they are on the digital nation's journey. And we look at this not just on infrastructure, but there are other factors. So infrastructure is obviously pivotal, but there are other factors. And this is where I think is going to be important when we look going forward, because there's rightly a lot of attention now about the auction and about what that's going to mean for infrastructure. But a digital nation is much more about that. It's about innovation, indigenous innovation for Pakistan. It's about having a secure a digital economy. It's about data governance, ensuring that we can use the data that we have. It's about having the people who are equipped to do to make the use of the spectrum. So if we look at where Pakistan is, we evaluated 21 countries. It's definitely in the lower quarter. So there's room to improve. So, if you push me and say where we are, that's the truth. So this is why I want to reinforce what, the minister has said and what Aamir has said. This is not just a telecom event. It's a strategic economic decision that will shape Pakistan's digital competitiveness. That is why the auction is pivotal. Pakistan is competing not just with its neighbours, but with a wider APAC digital economy. You just don't look to either side. It's all the countries around you. So countries that have ensured early investment friendly access to spectrum have accelerated their digital services, productivity and exports. So, but let's not be negative. Pakistan has the chance to catch up and even leapfrog. But it depends on getting spectrum to market on time at prices that encourage investment rather than delay it.
Shaza, I'll come to you here, and then Aamir on actually the pricing. And this is, of course, a delicate balance. On one end, the government wants the auction to yield a huge ticket, and that's good for the country from a fiscal perspective. Then on the other end, it ups the sort of playing zone for telcos. They have to invest a lot more money just in securing rights and then do further investment. So how have you planned this auction to be different? How are you, what number are you hoping? I'm not sure if you can share that. And how do you balance a fiscal success for the country and also the economic success for telco providers and investors?
That's a question that everybody keeps asking, and I think that was the key decision that we had to make when the spectrum auction decision came forward. And the idea was, and I have to mention here that the Prime Minister has been very, very progressive and forthcoming when it came to designing the auction, and so has the Finance Minister. He's chairing the Spectrum Advisory Committee, and I think the biggest proponent of revenue optimization, upfront revenue optimization, should have been the finance minister, but his support has been extremely, helpful in terms of framing the right kind of decisions when it came to designing the auction commitments, pricing, obligations, rollout expectations. But so I think that if I compare it to what happened last time, A, things have drastically changed since then. B, there are new bands that are being introduced. So we're not really comparing apples to apples when it comes to this auction. Third is that if I look at it in the region, this is quite an average rate at which the auction is happening. And the thing is that we had an international consultant do the best possible benchmarking for us, international benchmarking, giving us the optimal outcomes when it came to auction and what kind of uh, pricing, quality of service obligations, rollout obligations would churn out the best results. Our target is to, like Jeanette also said, this wasn't a telecom decision, this wasn't an IT decision, this was a larger strategic economic growth decision. The target of $25 billion that the prime minister has given us, $15 billion is export, $10 billion is actually the impact of digital transformation. And all of this can only happen if the connectivity is reliable, ubiquitous, and it's actually high speed internet is provided to everybody, not missing out anyone across. And I think that in today's intelligent age, where AI is, kind of revolutionizing everything, it is absolutely imperative that we start bridging the digital divide. So our aim and our, end goal was to optimize for larger long-term economic growth that connectivity is going to propel, rather than taking a myopic view and looking at upfront, accumulation of hard fiscal, looking at our short-term fiscal goals, because we understand that it is only better for the health of the sector that they have more liquidity, and that's why we are having stringent rollout obligations and quality of service obligations, as opposed to asking them to cough up finances upfront. So that's the perspective that we're taking, and we're really hopeful that this will, bring out the best results for the citizens in the country, not only in terms of better quality of service and connectivity experience, but also for the fact that there's going to be much more economic growth. There's going to be jobs created. And in any case, the revenue that we generate from the telecom sector right now is going to also, increase as the usage and data usage increases. So it's not really a, loss situation. There was it's quite a fair balance as to, ensure our fiscal and pragmatic fiscal goals, as well as ensuring that the economic health of the industry remains intact.
Coming to you, Amir, and particularly about the economic health. Now, of my understanding, just anecdotally and by speaking to people over the last few years, was that the ARPU in Pakistan has been so low, the average revenue per user, that if the government did bring out a 5G auction or a wider spectrum auction, the telcos were apparently not in a position to commit a lot of capital upfront. What has changed? Are revenues going up with the total per capita data usage has gone up? Are revenues also going up? And then secondly, what do you expect the structure of the auction to be? How much money does the industry have to put upfront over the next few years for the licenses? And then we'll get into the downstream investment from there. So yes, was this if this had happened 2 to 3 years ago, was this a problem at that time? Where is the industry now compared to where it was a few years ago, and is this a more
Yeah.
palatable option?
So listen, in this auction, as I think has been highlighted, it's not like a single event. It's an industry reset. It's an opportunity for us to leapfrog and to catch up. Like I must appreciate the pragmatic view that the government has taken from maximizing governmental value capture in the short term to actually recognizing that telecom is a sector of sectors and the digital infrastructure is something on which every single industry resides. So it doesn't really help us. If you look at telco as a sector from which they maximize governmental revenue, that's one view. But to see that how it can actually unleash the powers of every other sector and the economy grows, the government will end up receiving a lot more. So that point has to be recognized. Now, with regards to auction and the pricing, I think that's a relatively smaller point in my view compared to looking at the larger picture. The larger picture is really about providing robust, affordable, a reliable internet that people use every day to enhance their single factor productivity. That's what we're going towards. Many countries have now started recognizing that the previous models were not necessarily in the best interest of the industry. Now, there's a
Amir,
triangle. Just think of
if I may ask, what I would love is for you to break it down. What was the previous model? What were the previous auctions like? How is this auction supposed to be different?
so,
With
okay.
specific, please.
So the previous auctions have always been dollar based, and the asymmetry in the currency has really cost the industry and the country a lot. So in a emerging or a frontier country, it's very difficult to hedge the currency risk. We had a cost base in dollars, and we had a rupee based revenue from our customers. So while the fixed liabilities that we had to pay to the government were dollar based, the amount of revenue that I could generate was in rupees. There was a huge asymmetry. And what actually happened as a consequence of that, that there was a reluctance. Well, not just reluctance, there was just not enough free disposable cash for us to invest. If you think about the telecom sector or any auction, it's a triangle. There is government, there is customer, and then there is the investor slash operator. Traditionally, the governments have wanted to capture money in the beginning, right? The customer always wants something free, better, affordable. And the operator at least wants to have a minimum viable return on the investment. Now, in the previous auctions, the government may have gotten their money up front. The customer may have gotten the illusion of a cheap internet. But in the long term, that cheap internet is actually expensive because it's not reliable. And the operator, which is the third component, basically could not really make the ends meet. As a result, did not really invest that much in capacity and quality. So the triangle was not really a healthy triangle. We can actually go towards a win-win-win, and this is what the new design of this thing is, and I have to, like I said, when the government has listened to us, we asked for longer payment terms, we asked for depegging from USD, and we asked for reasonable prices, in addition to making a lot of spectrum available, which had been highlighted before. So I think now most of the recommendations that the industry had been given have been accommodated. And I hope there is active participation. But through this active participation, I want to highlight a couple of things. The customer wants better internet. 4G and 5G are typically things that marketeers talk about and icons that mobile phone. But essentially, what we need to offer to the customer is reliable, fast, robust internet. And if it is the right quality of internet, I'm sure that they're willing to pay more. Today, an average Pakistani spends less on their monthly internet services than 3 cups or 4 cups of tea. So like there's a huge asymmetry. Our average ARPU is more, just over 270, 80 rupees per month. This is unsustainable in the long run. So, to recap, I think all the conditions that we had been perhaps requesting and asking from the government have come through. There is a lot of spectrum available. Subsequently, what we need to do is make sure that the penetration of smartphones increases, even the 4G smartphones. And especially for 5G, we don't have enough devices as of today. And we are working with the government and again, asking them for some concessions where we can accelerate the rollout of 5G devices here in Pakistan.
But before I go to Jeanette, both for you and Shaza, just if you could just be is this going to happen? The auction will be in rupees this time, and the payment will be staggered over how many years, and what does the obligation set look like on the part of the telco? What does it look like on the part of the government?
The final IM is yet to come out, but the draft IM that was made public, essentially, when we say that it's going to be in rupee, so earlier what happened was that the license fee was dollar based, and over a few years, between 2016 and 2021, we saw almost the dollar, rupee depreciating from 100 rupee to 300 rupees, and that kind of 3x the cost of for the sector. Yeah. So other than that, so this time around, what we've done is that we've announced the spectrum pricing in dollars, but the dollar rate will be fixed to a day before the spectrum auction day, and that's where we're fixing it. So essentially, this is what the core difference is. As far as the payment terms go, the ones in the draft IM are 1 year moratorium, and I think that's a significant space given to the sector overall to invest in the rollout, invest in the infrastructure. So there's going to be a 1 year moratorium and then a 5 year payment plan that is going to come up. So right now we're talking about 50% upfront payment, and then 1 year moratorium, and then 5 subsequent installments. And so that's the draft IM that's there right now. But I think there's also, like I said before, I'll reiterate that this time around, as we go into the auction, we're auctioning 600 megahertz of spectrum. Now that's the magnitude, the difference. Let me just explain. So in 2021, only 28 megahertz was auctioned. Uh, in 2014, 57 megahertz was auctioned. In 2016, 10 megahertz was auctioned. And then in the last auction, we just had one bidder, and that was also only 9 megahertz in 2021 was actually taken up. Now compare this with 600 megahertz of auction that's going to happen, and because of a lot of other stuff that has happened, and including the kind of conditions and the kind of plan that we've issued, we are expecting to see at least doubling of the available spectrum right now that is in the country. So that's what my expectation would be, that minimum 300 or more goes out, and our national spectrum availability doubles from 274 to close to 600. So that's essentially, and also this time around they have the refarming options, they have the rationalization provisions, so that's also going to lower their costs. And I don't know if you want to ask this in another question, but there's also other stuff that has happened. For example, the Honorable Prime Minister has abolished the right-of-way fees for fiberization. That really gives a lot of investment, makes the whole investment ecosystem for fiber deployment much better. Right now, we're at 16% our fiberization. We want it to go up to at least 60% in the next 3 years. That's what our goals look like. But we're not only setting targets, we're actually doing the groundwork for it. And this is also government of Pakistan giving up their revenues when we talk about letting go of right of way. So that's the kind of investment, that's the kind of policy decisions that we're willing to take right now to make sure that we have reliable high speed internet across.
And it's currently the now of course two telcos have recently merged, so it's just the three players, the three existing incumbent players who will be allowed very briefly to bid for the auction.
Absolutely. And so with the market consolidation, I think things become even better for the sector overall.
Understood. Jeanette, what happens when an auction like this takes place and they've pegged they will peg it to the dollar rupee rate to when the auction happens over the next few years. They've given a staggered payment plan. So assuming this happens at a fair market price, telcos are happy. Typically, when an auction like this happens, the availability of spectrum truly widens. What starts to happen in the telecom and IT industry of that country?
Yeah. So yeah, let's assume then we're going to have a very successful auction. Okay,
Yeah.
I think we're all on the same page on that one there. And I just want to, I think it was it's been mentioned by both the minister and Aamir, is that, I think it's very important about this balance. Balancing fiscal objectives with long-term connectivity isn't choosing one above the other. And I think that's what we've tried to do here. It's about timing. So we price the spectrum in a way that lets operators build the network first, then how the economy grows. So the fiscal benefits will follow naturally once connectivity improves. Remember, I said at the beginning there about digital nations. So you need to improve that, and that will then make the economy grow. We know that in every country, the digital economy is growing much faster than the other economy.
What does that mean? What happens? So spectrum guidance, what happens in the hardware side? What do the telcos invest in? And I'll ask more about this from Aamir as well. But generally speaking, what downstream services start to proliferate?
Yeah, well, the telcos, I mean, Amir's better place than me to say this, but they have to build out new networks and new infrastructure. And that actually is, that's going to cost them money. What we have seen in some markets, in Asia Pacific, is governments have really incentivized the operators to roll out faster because they believe, this is the key thing, rolling out faster. So I can mention, like, for example, in Vietnam, what they did there, for every base station the mobile operator rolled out, they gave a discount up to the amount they bid on the spectrum auction. This meant that, Vietnam was way behind on 5G. But what it did, once this incentive then enabled Vietnam to go from nothing to a 5G standalone rollout network. They said it's in the first year. So there are ways of doing it. Now, why did the government do that? Because they see the benefit of what a digital economy could be. And, very much like Pakistan, Vietnam has an ambition to export and, to be a strong economy. So once you've got people, at the moment, maybe just thinking about, connectivity, internet, but you can actually bringing the whole digitization of the economy, bringing online services so that we can actually expand the tax base, doing all those sorts of things actually grows the economy. It's not just about consumers, it's as well about businesses. So that's where we're seeing it. I mean, many countries, you can see that where economies have grown, your near neighbors have already rolled out 5G, and that, the benefits, you can see that's happening. So it does take a leap of faith. I mean, obviously we want to see this happen, but it has been proven time and time again. So I'm very confident that if we have a successful auction and we can roll out the networks. And Pakistan, people have a good reputation for their innovation. We know that for developing software they can use that, then we can see they get the full benefit of the connectivity.
Aamir, how much do we expect the industry to sort of invest in total in this upcoming auction? And then subsequently, how much money do you see going in over the next 5 years? And where would that money go in? Please walk our viewers through what hardware investments take place, what device investment take place, what software investments take place. So the money now, how much do we expect to come to this auction, money next few years, and where all?
Right. So, listen, this is all investment, and there's, especially in the case of 5G, there's an asymmetry of investment and the returns that you get because you start upgrading your network, but there are not enough customers. So the penetration of the smartphones start increasing with the passage of time, and that's why, some of the tweaks that we have requested the government to consider are really delaying this moratorium from 1 to 3 years because we will be investing in 5G today when there are no customers. So it's a little bit of a give and take kind of a thing, and hopefully we will come to a point where the investment is future proof. Now, specifically, where does this money go? I wouldn't get into how much other operators are going to invest because that's their strategy that I'm not privy to. I can share that as a leading operator with the highest ARPU customers, our customers expect better, and we like are obligated to provide them better services. So we're looking at this opportunity as a major reset, and we will participate hopefully aggressively. Where the money actually gets spent is really upgradation of the network. So things as simple as upgrading your power uh, components, right? As you get 5G, it may consume more energy. In Pakistan, we don't always rely on the grid. We need to have backup energy of batteries and then the third backup energy of generators. So we may need longer, bigger generators. We may need bigger batteries to, power a 5G thing. Now, all of this investment is being made slightly out of sequence because initially when I upgrade, I only have at a nationwide basis, only 2% 5G customers. So I have to invest now and then hope that more 5G handsets will be there who then use services that we will offer. They will generate higher ARPU and so on and so on. So it's an upgrade, first of all, of your power infrastructure, but that's a smaller component. The real upgrade really comes in when you have to actually change the radio network. And the radio network, especially as Madam Minister also said, we're getting into new frequencies, 2300, 2600, 3.5 gigahertz. You need to bring in equipment which is going to be able to work in these frequencies. So in a way, it is a complete network overall. It's not just switching on a licensing thing and then all of a sudden you have this thing. Every one of our 17,000 towers will be impacted. And like again, the minor tweaks that I have requested for the government to consider, if some of them are accepted, I feel very confident that in about 5 years' time, we can actually uh, undo the delay that we have experienced so far, and we can actually move towards, we can actually take a shout. Like we'll be 5G ready in 5 years across the country, not just take smaller steps, just like we've seen in Vietnam, where they actually gave some incentives and they moved from NSA to SA, which basically means it's a standalone 5G network. Everything works and you can slice the network. That's the ultimate 5G network. Here, that business case doesn't make sense because a lot of your customers are still going to be on 2G, and we can't leave those customers behind. So, like I said earlier on, also, ultimately the customer really cares about good quality internet, and we as a country have to make sure that every citizen has affordability and good internet, regardless of what appears on their screen as an icon.
Shaza, my next question is for you. So there will be more investment from the industry, and then devices also have to be manufactured. So downstream, the device manufacturers will also probably start making 5G devices in Pakistan. Then, in terms of use cases, when 5G becomes available, enterprises who provide 5G use cases, provided the number of users also grow, will also start to jump in. Now, one overhang on the industry, and I'd love for you to answer not just as a minister, but also as a young Pakistani, as a user of technology. We still have we're taxing devices and we're taxing the internet. On the other end, there is vast pools of retail. There are vast pools within agriculture. We don't have contribution from tax coming in. What's your take? Do you think, and in these cabinet meetings, do you go and fight for removal of or reduction of taxes on both the internet and devices?
100%. I mean, and it's not just me. I have to say that even the prime minister is on my side when we go and argue for this, because there is a complete, unquestioned understanding that connectivity and digital is the way forward, and that's the not just the lowest hanging fruit, but actually the long term development strategy that we have. So there's no question about the fact that all of us are actually, and I have to also say that even to the extent that even the FBR actually agrees with us. There are obviously certain limitations and obligations because of which things are not optimal as we would like them to be. But overall, the consideration, including the finance minister, is that this is something that has to be affordable, accessible to everybody. But so, what are we doing about it? Look, almost 95% of Pakistan's smartphone telephone usage or consumption is actually catered for by domestic assembly of smartphones and even the 2G phones, right? So that's one thing. The taxes on the imported phones, which are essentially probably iPhones or Google Pixels, otherwise even the Samsungs and major Chinese brands, all of them are being manufactured in the country itself. So that's one thing. That there's a very small chunk of people that require that kind of mobile handsets that have those import taxes on it. The second is that we have long been arguing about taxation on the telecom sector, and that's a conversation we have in every finance bill discussion that comes on. Something that, again, everybody agrees to. You know that we're in the IMF program right now. Taxes are not something that we can tinker with a lot. But rest assured, there is on both sides, consideration to ensure that all taxable income, uh, capital gains, wealth should be taxed, while on the other side, the enablers of the economy should be able to thrive and be accessible to everybody. So that's essentially the principal rationale behind it, and that's why you see Honorable Prime Minister personally taking interest in digitizing FBR, digitizing customs, to make sure that there are no loopholes when it comes to taxing the right kind of sectors that should be taxed, and everybody who should be paying their taxes should be paying taxes. Broadening the tax net is something that you talk about very frequently, and we genuinely feel, and Aamir is also a part of our committee. Honorable Prime Minister takes a fortnightly meeting on cashless economy, digitizing economy itself. My first conversation after becoming the minister with the Prime Minister was that we are a 400 plus billion-dollar economy. We feel that even in conservative terms, 50% of our economy is informal right now. Even if we're able to digitize 50% of that informal economy, we have a $200 billion added to our national GDP. So that's the bigger picture that we're looking at. That's how we see connectivity, digital conversation on digital economy. And we genuinely feel that access to internet, and then obviously digitizing the economy at large, bringing digital payments in, that is going to be revolutionary. Like I said, not just, this is not a tech conversation, this is not a telecom conversation, this is a larger economic, strategic, and even a security conversation that we have.
Makes sense. And I hope that in the coming budget, we're able to provide relief to these sectors, especially because right now, more investments need to come in. Even
Mm,
from a user perspective, users have to go out and buy 5G devices.
mm,
Every participant of the economy has to invest for this next evolution to start. Uh, Jeanette, what would be, like, high level, looking at it from an outsider's perspective and someone working with multiple sectors, what would be your advice, A, to the government, B, to telcos, and C, to the wider tech economy or private sector at large? Like, what should they be looking at? What type of decisions or sectors and ideas should they be focusing on so we get the best outcome out of this development?
Well, I would never advise government. I can just talk about what's worked in other countries where we've seen things working well. And every country is different, and the different cultures of that country have a real impact on the way things are digitized. But the minister said a very important thing. I think that it's about digitizing the economy, that everybody can, you can use the services, and that, that it takes a lot of benefit out of that. But one thing that we haven't mentioned, we've talked about the devices, but there's also a skills gap, a digital skills gap. We know actually in Pakistan, a lot of people are already in the footprint of a mobile operator, but they don't use the internet for various reasons. Now, affordability is one, but some of them are, digital skills, and then there could be safety concerns or lack of, sort of relevant content. And all, so we need to, what I would say is where governments have done very well is when they look at the holistically everything there. So they look at, affordability measures with digital literacy and local languages services. That's been a faster adoption. Now, I know, I think, Aamir, you can probably say something what you're doing in local languages, because we haven't mentioned the word AI, which is amazing when we think we've been on something where a digital economy. So again, those sorts of things we need to think about. And actually, I would say that holistic program, we focus very much on, obviously, on consumers. But if we look at where 5G is in many countries in the markets I know in Asia Pacific, it's also about businesses and enterprises and looking about where can you get what would work well. Now, a lot of people have said 5G monetization has been difficult, and it's true, it has been. I think we should be quite open about that. But we have seen good things, and I think if we look at, like, say, Pakistan, where would be opportunities, and things like digital health would be a prime area where if we could use 5G services and get out there. Education, and maybe agriculture would be another one, where smart agriculture. We've seen in Thailand, some really very, very good things where, on agriculture, on smart agriculture. So it's about what works for your country, what's important, what would happen there. But I would, we keep going back. This is not a telco. This is a, strategic economic understanding of a digital nation. But always, as we'll come back to it, without connectivity, you've got nothing. And for connectivity in a country, particularly in Pakistan, where most people, the only access is via a mobile phone, then we need to have spectrum. So that we always come back to the spectrum auction, which is very important. But, let's look at it from a big picture view.
Aamir, the perfect segue and setup from Jeanette. And I want to ask you, you're of course an allocator. You're an operator and also an allocator of capital, right? You're not just a telco company anymore. You do financial services, and now you are getting into agri-related services, healthcare-related services. Now, having been in the hot seat for so long, give us your gut prediction. Where do you think uh, the biggest service expansion will happen? Help us imagine that in a few years' time, 3 years or 5 years with 5G. Are we seeing something revolutionary happening in healthcare or agriculture or education or financial services? Which are the top beneficiary sectors? And what are the telcos doing there in your imagination? What are other players doing there? Help us imagine this.
Okay. Well, the vision has to be that like it enables all of these things. As I keep on saying, telco is not a sector; it's a cross-sector enabler. You talk about health, agriculture. Agriculture becomes agri-tech, finance becomes fintech, education becomes edtech. All of these things rely on this broadband connectivity layer. Hopefully, my vision is that in 3 or 4 years' time, we wouldn't be talking about telcos. We wouldn't be talking about 4G or 5G. This is just electricity. We stopped talking about electricity. It's just there. What you do with that electricity makes the difference. So we want to very quickly get to a point where there is robust connectivity. It's a foundational layer. Our discussions really need to move from whether the phone works, how many signals it does it have, what is the speed, to basically what are you doing with it. So the highway has been built. Now you talk about AI, you talk about software, you talk about medical, you talk about education, you talk about all the things that you're talking about. Each one of them will get a really necessary force multiplier. So what we are doing right now is taking care of hygiene. Like that's the first part. And as soon as that is done, I think good things will automatically start happening. This was, I think, in my view, one of the last remaining roadblocks because I can't really break the laws of physics. There's a very limited road. I can't pass on more traffic. I can't pass on more customers. It was getting congested. Now that we have decided to unlock that highway into a wider one, hopefully there is enough that goes through it. But the success of this particular thing, I know that this topic of discussion today is really the upcoming spectrum auction. How much are we going to raise from it? That's not really the success. The success is going to be in years to come on what we do with this thing. Whether the government raises $100 million or $500 million, quite honestly, is inconsequential. Whether I invest $200 million a year or $500 million, again, perhaps may have some impact. The real success of this thing would be how many more people are empowered, are digitally connected, get closer to the Prime Minister's vision of a digital or a smart nation. How do we upgrade our overall quality of life as citizens, as producers of capital? I think that is what we need to look at. For me, as you rightly mentioned, we're also a bank, we're a fintech, we're an entertainment company, and many other things that we have in the pipeline. I think that unless we have this foundational layer, none of those things really can go that far. As the minister also mentioned, I'm also part of the cashless society. We need to make sure that every retailer has got connectivity because without that, I can't really offer them digital services. I can't really get them to pay using a QR code. If you're talking about digitizing FBR, again, that relies on connectivity, that relies on all the things that we've talked about. So today's section, certainly I can understand this is the topic du jour. We're going after many years towards a much awaited 5G auction. The last auction was in 2021. The industry has moved from being a five-player operator to a three-player operator, which I think is just the right size. So I think a lot of things have happened, and sure, there's a focus on what will happen in this auction. All I hope is it's a good auction. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of our recommendations have been incorporated. With a few minor tweaks, I think we have really the opportunity of accelerating what is already very good to something that can be truly great. Like we're given our submissions as per the process to the regulator. I hope they consider it, and I think we're on a good path forward.
And Shazad, what Amir described as the market, if the market conditions come together, the private sector will jump in on all kinds of use cases, whether it's education or healthcare. And when people will see that the enablement exists and there is a business model that exists, they will jump in. Jeanette raised an interesting point about the skills gap, and I know we spoke about this in an earlier podcast when you first took office, and you laid out all the programs. You also, especially your ministry, is involved in, I think, a cross section of programs. So give us a sense of on a holistic level what's happening maybe on the school front in terms of upskilling kids, college, university front, also in sort of the agri space, in the government space. I remember as we spoke, you were talking about rolling out the Pakistan stack, building simple tech usage capacity within the government as well, because it's so crucial. So give us a lay of the land of what all is happening on this skills gap, because it will also be a key ingredient to the holistic success of what happens next.
Right. So thank you for that question. So basically, I think that in a nutshell, let me just also help you imagine what I believe Pakistan should look like in the next 5 to 10 years. Everybody having essentially two mobile applications, one identity application, other services application, and everybody being able to access the government services online from a click of their button on the mobile, and not having to physically go office to office. uh, Government being paperless, society being contactless, economy being cashless is something that what we envision for Pakistan once we have all of the, like Amir said, the hygiene part of it sorted. So that's what we imagine Pakistan to be in the next 5 to 10 years. What has been done till now? I think that 100% adoption of e-office is something that I keep repeating, a great success for the government of Pakistan, which essentially means that I at least don't sign any paper, neither does anybody else in the federal government. It's all dashboarded for the Prime Minister real time. It increases transparency, it increases efficiency. A very preliminary, almost 1 year data showed that we saved potentially can save around 10 billion rupees per annum. We've reduced the file processing time from 25 days to 4 days. So that's the basic efficiency that has come in from deploying a very, very simple basic e-office system. Now we're deploying the AI layer onto it, and better analytical capability for it. So that's just one example of what has happened. On the skills front, on the human resource front, I think that one core, I would say, achievement has been that we've had consensus on curriculum upgradation for the HEC universities. We've agreed to have an annual testing to ensure baselining of our CS graduates. On the primary and secondary level, Islamabad has already introduced AI education grade 6 onwards. This April, it's going to become mandatory. Punjab government has made it also introduced AI education on the school level, and I'm sure that other provinces are also following the suit. So these are, some structural changes that have come in. Obviously, we need to focus on my bigger question is who's teaching this AI, right? Because do we really have the kind of numbers that we talk about in our schools? Do we really have that capability? So what my next target, or actually simultaneously what we're doing, is that we've been for the last 1 year testing various edtech tools for the students, but also for the teachers, for them to be able to use AI tools to teach not just tech but everything else much better, right? So it's not necessary that my teacher should be a PhD in artificial intelligence, but it is very important that they can coach AI using an edtech tool which can teach artificial intelligence itself. So that's the beauty of AI right now, that it's kind of solving its own challenges that it's bringing along. That's what we're focusing on, using the best edtech techniques for the students, self-learning techniques, also enabling the teachers. On the agri-tech front, we've worked with the SIFC, the Green Initiative. Honorable Prime Minister, Field Marshal, both, set the ground for it about 2.5 years back in 2023. Now the agri stack is quite in order. We're working on farmer identities. We're also supporting a lot of agri tech companies and startups. We have an agri tech incubator supported by the Ministry of IT in Faisalabad that ensures that funding goes into R&D as well. But again, I think when Honorable Prime Minister talks about the three top, his priorities, IT and agriculture are both on top. Agriculture almost employs 60% of our workforce. Again, we're an agrarian economy. It's going to be very, very, easy for us if we deploy the right kind of technologies, increase the yields, give the farmers. Okay, so one more thing. When you imagine 5 years down, agri-tech is the addition is not only going to change the yields of the farmers, but for example, when I said there's going to be two mobile applications, the identity application, my digital identity, one is my private identity, but other is my persona as my professional, right? So for example, if I have a digital identity for my farmers in the rural areas, their KYC becomes so easy for the banking system. It completely unlocks the capital injection into the sector overall. The lending that we keep talking about, which is missing from the private sector, from the agri sector, the whole easing out of KYC through digital identities actually unlocks that financial opportunity as well. So you see, there's everything's just so connected. It's almost kind of perfectly falls into place once you have the baseline sorted. Once we really launch the Pakistan stack, the data exchange layer, data becomes interoperable. Digital identities we've already started rolling out, and that's something that has happened over the last 2 years, and that's something that we take really take pride in. But over the next 5 years, 10 years, it's obviously a long process reengineering, people management being the hardest part of this conversation. But hopefully, over the next 5 to 10 years, we're looking at a Pakistan that's up there with any other uh, top nation in the world, especially when it comes to, if you ask me what's one single goal, it's not digital identity, it's not the Pakistan stack, it's the actually the citizen experience living in Pakistan. And how am I going to solve for that problem where an average citizen actually prefers to be in Pakistan as opposed to wanting to go out and being abroad somewhere?
Thank you, Shaza, and really wish you all the best in that rollout. Anyone who's lived in the GCC in recent years, especially Dubai, so the UAE pass and I think my ICP, between the two, everything just falls in place. And
Yep.
your documents as an individual, education certificates and stuff. As a corporate citizen, there are also similar portals, and so much starts with documentation. Building upon that, Jeanette. So now we've got 5G. We have, of course, let's say we have the stack. So the farmers are, let's say, identified. Their land ownership is also identified. But this has to be, they have to be taught how to use this, right? One thing is we build this stack. The other is also there are a million apps in the world. The farmer can take a picture of their crop and it can tell them fairly precisely what's the issue. Do they need some pesticide? Do they need some other materials and so on and so forth? Give us examples of countries which did a very good job at upskilling their nation as the technology rollout was taking place, and what have been some great successes.
Well, it's an interesting question, that, because I was just thinking about it. Well, there's loads of examples of, different public-private partnerships where the operators and maybe technology platform players and they, work alongside government to improve skills. So you've got to have the basic skills. I think that's what we're saying. Once you've got the basic skills, then then it's easier, a lot easier. Look, I mean, my mom is 88, okay, and she is a digital citizen. She uses, because she knows how to use things. She uses AI. She knows about that, but she had the basic, from a long, long time ago in the UK that's using things. Then you've got to make sure. One thing that we haven't perhaps touched upon here is digital trust, and that is something that we need to be very mindful going forward, because sadly, that we know people get scammed and all that sort of stuff. We need to ensure that there's the ecosystem, everything is safe. So I think it's very much about, from what we've seen, if there is something that's useful, it was something I said before, that you need to have a use. So in Pakistan, if they've got the basic skills and they can see that they can get an improvement in their yields, why wouldn't they want to? Why wouldn't they want to learn? Why would they not want to improve? So I think it's a lot around that. It's so I there's no magic answer, but at the end of the day, I think it's what we've all said, is that we need to have that digital transformation, that people have the ability to be connected and to feel safe on the network and to be able to use it. Once we can do that, the applications will grow. I mean, we don't know what's out there. What if we look back, I don't know, say 20 years, who would have thought about the iPhone? We don't know those things. These things are in the future. And, in the last few years, AI is transformed. Many people that and they don't have to have a lot of skill. I mean, we have to make sure we train them to not so they have the the guardrails, if you like, and understand the risks. But overall, people are using it. They don't need to have to be told how to do it.
Interesting. And Aamir, I'd love to hear from you on digital trust. And it's a very interesting point that Jeanette raised. And also, Shaza, please weigh in on this as well. And I guess it runs across the board, right? So in terms of people still choosing cash on delivery on e-commerce because they feel what they're being shown is not what's gonna arrive, and this is and this has to be solved on just not just the enterprise which is providing this service, but the connectivity providers, the government. Then the second issue that I can think of is what Jeanette also said, the financial scams that are happening. And I know there's a lot of awareness drives that happen from telcos and PTA, but that's also it. I mean, it requires a lot of trust for farmers and and shopkeepers and the hawker in the corner to be able to trust to receive and send money on these systems. And then thirdly, also the safety of our children, especially young girls. That there are a lot of, I mean, that's not just a Pakistan phenomena. That's a problem we're dealing with all over the world. Please, Amir, I would love for you to speak about this a little bit from your lens. And again, now we're not talking spectrum. We're talking post hygiene. This system is proliferating. Like in everything, when things grow, new problems emerge. So what are you doing? What are you working with the government on? And Shaza, would love for you to speak about it as well.
Sure. I'm glad that the topic is now converging or pivoting towards some of the other things that we must address in parallel. Trust is important. Trust, transparency are both important. Cybersecurity, data protection, cybersecurity, bullying for kids, for young girls, vulnerable crowds. It's a combination of us educating, and it's also an evolution for people. And unfortunately, people are prone to fraud. Scam economy is a big economy. It's more than $1 trillion a year. And scams have happened for the last 2,000 years, and they will happen for the next 2,000 years. The shape of those things will perhaps change. And unfortunately, the bad guys are perhaps ahead of the good guys. So we catch up, we educate, and then something else is found. What we can do as players in the ecosystem, not necessarily telcos, whether it's the regulators, whether it's the banks, the fintechs, we have to constantly keep on educating. We fill one hole and another hole will get exposed, and those creative fraudsters will find something else. It's going to be a constant struggle. Even in countries like Sweden and those who are further ahead than us, it's not that there is no fraud. Even in UAE, where I'm currently, there are unfortunate incidents. So it's not to say that, like just because things like this happen elsewhere, we should not do anything. Absolutely not. We need to do a lot. It needs to start with awareness. It needs to start with plugging in our holes. Sometimes when we design products, we don't really think about all the things, or we can't possibly think about all the things that a miscreant exposes and then benefits from for a short period of time before we close that thing. I think these are some of the things that will get, uh, again, like with many other hygiene things, they will get addressed. For example, you'd be surprised to know that most of the frauds in Pakistan happen at the back of customer naivety. So somebody says that, please, can you give me your PIN? And they will give them the PIN and the account is hacked. Now, you wouldn't give your car keys to somebody just because they walk in. So, like we can't blame the customer. We have to educate. And I think this is where a lot of our emphasis is going on right now. And so is the case for Central Bank of Pakistan, who's directing the banks. So this is one element of financial trust that we need to build. Then there is that trust about the privacy of your data. I think just like many good things, AI will also create some bad things, and we have to think about what is a fake, representation of me, what is a fake video, and I think people will experiment as the quality of that AI becomes better and better. You will probably not be able to differentiate. So with every technological leap, there are 90%, maybe I would say 95, 98% good things happening. There are certain things that we need to be aware of. Those bad things have happened historically, and I can't say that they wouldn't happen in the future. But I think all of us, from regulators to policymakers to operators to citizens, we need to collectively fight this thing. And I think the world will be a better technology. Overall, has been a force for good, even though occasionally there are bad things happening. I hear a lot about these things that like social media is bad. It helps you and me connect. Video conferencing could have been bad, but look at us, like we're in four different time zones and chatting with each other if we're sitting next to one another.
Absolutely. Shaza, would love for you to tell us about all the work we're doing on a national scale to generally improve digital trust in the realms we mentioned. And I'm sure there are more areas that you're already looking at. I'm sure this includes national security as well.
Of course. As far as trust goes, I think trust is right now, for any nation aiming to become a digital nation, it becomes a core asset that we have. It's again, just like connectivity, it is also a core foundation of, because I can give internet to everyone and devices to everybody, but if they don't trust the system, they're not going to use it. So that's an essential component. And when we talk about digital trust, essentially we're talking about multiple things. We're talking about security, which is protection against cybercrime, cyber frauds, as has been discussed. It's about privacy. It's about your protection of your personal data, handling of personal data much better. It's about reliability. It's about knowing that a big thing about older people sticking to their hard paper, is actually because they don't trust that what if they can't really touch it, they can't feel it, it's not tangible, right? So will it still be there when I look at it again? So I'd rather have a printout, right? So the reliability is, again, then transparency and governance is something which is critical. We have to have clear rules and accountability. We have to have the right regulations in order, which are not really depressing the innovation, but also actually rather create an environment where people actually trust the systems. And not just, it's not only about digital, right? Like you said, e-commerce. Why do people pay cash on delivery? Because we don't have proper consumer rights regulations in place. Our consumer courts are inefficient, right? So it's not just about the digital trust that we're talking about. It's again interlinked to the some of the legacy systems that we have. And then obviously comes the ethical use of data. When we talk about giving when I'm talking about punching in my name, my ID card number, my email address, my date of birth, I have to feel secure that the data will only be used for what we're granting the access for. So consent becomes a very core layer. Now, in Pakistan, with Nadra's ID card system, we already have a very good baselining for the database that we have. And I have to say that Nadra has been really progressive in this sense, and one of the best regulators that we have, one of the few successful regulators, I would say, that have actually served the purpose that they were created to do. And but in order to have that, now we're working on, for example, trusted digital credible identities, right? So the consent layer on top of it is something which is going to be of core importance. When I make my data governance laws right now, and regulations and policy right now, my data exchange protocols right now, consent is the primary thing I'm focusing on. That do I give consent when I do single sign-ons on multiple mobile applications? What is it that I'm consenting to? What parts of my private data? For so, like, if I have my digital vault where I have my health records, I have my education records, possibly my criminal records, my property records, my asset records, what part of, with single sign-on happening on the Nadra's Park ID app, what parts of the data am I consenting on? So that clarity, transparency, effective regulation, governance is something that we're extremely focused on. And one of the reasons why we're not rushing the process is that we need to make sure that everything's well in place before we go all out in terms of rollout.
And how will it happen? Actually, let's take a use case, for example. Let's
Yeah,
say the rural economy, which has
yeah,
actually been fairly disconnected from the entire form of financial services sector, right? So let's say if I'm a rural farmer, I have whatever 20, 30 acres. So so my land record will also be reflected in the same identity app, but will all government departments be able to see all my information? Do I, as a user, have a right? Okay, now I want to share it with a Bank of Punjab or a Bank Al Falah and not share it with someone? Give us the framework of how this data layer will sit, because
yeah,
as 5G is proliferating, we are
yeah.
going to move more and more towards these interactions.
Right. So look at it as a data exchange layer where all the data is plugged into, right? And for example, I'll give you an example. If I go, once we have the one patient, one ID in order, we already have that quite successfully going in PIMS right now in Islamabad. But for example, if my doctor enters my unique identity card number, I will give consent to what data goes on to my doctor's screen. And it's not going to be my criminal record. It's not going to be my education record. It's just going to be my health record. And we are going to make, when we're making the data exchange layer, most of these things will be inbuilt. That it's not that every time a police a police person enters your identity card number, they begin to get your educational record or personal identity records. So most of these things will be built into the data exchange layer. But every time anyone is accessing your data, you will get a prompt to say, yes, I consent to sharing this data with XYZ entity, company, department, wherever I am. So every single time somebody is accessing your data, the mobile application pops up, asks for consent, and makes sure that you give consent before it's taken. There are also going to be policies around that data is not, we're having a mesh system over here. We're not making a data lake of sorts. It's everybody's going to, every department's owning their own data, every individual's owning their own data. It's going to be on call. When one entity calls for a data point from another entity, it's just going to be that particular data transmitted for that particular transaction. No copies to be made, no data to be saved. And then it goes back and becomes secure where it came from. So those are the things that we're building in. Those are the protocols that we're working on, frameworks that we're working on. But rest assured, if I'm going to HEC to get my I send my degree for verification, HEC is not getting access to my uh, health record or criminal record per se.
Excellent. It's finally refreshing to we're finally being able to talk about these things, and talking about design and structure of the future, and how businesses will be built on top of these foundation layers. Jeanette, I'll start with you, and then Aamir, and then Shaza for parting words, and your sort of excitement about the upcoming auction, and what you think is in store for all of us.
Yeah, well, I think we've gone around here, and I think we've all agreed. The auction is important, but it's what the spectrum enables. But we have to have that spectrum, and it has to be assigned and used, in commercial use. So there are some measures, and that we need to put in place. The initial IM that we've seen out there lays out some very good foundations, to do that. So what we want to do is to see, I would like to see that does achieve what we got there, because all the things the minister talked about, what we can do there, and Aamir talked about, can't be done unless we have the connectivity. And all these other layers on top are very important, but the bottom line of it is that's why everyone's very worked up and excited about the spectrum auction. We need it. There's been starved of spectrum, and we need the spectrum. But let's keep our eye on the end game. I think that's what I would say. That we see the challenges addressed. The device challenges, they all need to be addressed. But what we want to see is real economic outcomes. Hospitals using telemedicine, SMEs using digital tools, agriculture becoming more efficient, and more people, especially women in rural communities, participating in the digital economy. If we see these things happen, I think, Pakistan will have moved forward in a very inclusive way. And I think that's been a comment that we've heard and always heard from the government and from industry about inclusivity. It's been a very core part of Pakistan's future. And, so I'm very excited, and, we wish you all the very best with the auction and the outcomes that come from it.
Thank you. And Aamir, what as this enablement comes into play, you as the lead operator in this space, what are you most excited about? What can't you wait to already get cracking on?
Well, before I answer that, I think one of the biggest positives that I've seen in this discussion, not just today, but in the last 3-4 weeks since the IM has come out, is to recognize the mindshift change in the governmental quarters from a single revenue generating event to something that fundamentally changes and pushes Pakistan forward. I think that to me has been the biggest positive uh, surprise, I would say, or event coming out of this thing. I think it's a change of that mindset, which basically, in the discussions that I've had with the Honorable Minister and Chairman PTA, are not really about how much are you going to buy. It's really about how are you going to impact the lives of customers? How do they benefit? Not just the 5G customers, the 4G customers, make sure they're not left behind. So the discussion has fundamentally shifted from revenue maximization to impact maximization. And I think that's the discussion where the quality of the discussion has changed. It's about a progressive, prosperous Pakistan, a future-ready Pakistan. So in that sense, like how can one not be excited? I have a huge responsibility, not just from banking sector and the other things that we want to do, but as a foundational layer that we provide. And I hope that what we do spurs the healthy competition and gets the other operators also excited about it. It's not about being bigger, being larger, it's about being more impactful. And I think collectively, the three operators who now service the Pakistani customers have a huge responsibility to make sure that we offer reliable and robust internet on which Pakistanis build better lives.
Thank you, Aamir. Shaza, for you, looking ahead 3 years, 5 years, what does success look like? What is the North Star? What will get you super excited and happy looking ahead?
In a single line, success would look like our an average citizen's experience of using internet and connectivity becoming better, and also the spillover impact of their better chances of employability, entrepreneurship, innovation, digital economy thriving in the country. That's what success essentially will look like to me in the next 5 to 10 years. And also, I would say that throughout the process, in addition to the leadership of the Prime Minister, PTA, Chairman PTA has been of a tremendous support in the whole conversation, a great friend of the industry, as well as looking after the citizen, rights in terms of quality, rollout. The industry itself has been really forthcoming, and I think that's a very, very positive thing coming out after a long time. And the organizations like GSMA, we've had multiple conversations with Jeanette, Julian, everybody to take these conversations forward. Their suggestions coming in, their experience coming in has been extremely valuable for us in terms of where we stand today. So I think that everybody moving together towards a single goal of Digital Nation Pakistan is what we're working towards, and we're continuously looking for more and more people to become a part of our bandwagon, carrying everybody together. And last but not the least, what Jeanette just very briefly touched upon, inclusivity is something which is going to be a very, very core part of anything that we do. I think the digital divide numbers that GSMA came out with last year were very, very encouraging. We were able to close the mobile internet usage gender divide from 38% to 25%. That was the fastest, largest closure that any region saw. But those are the numbers that make us happy. The cashless economy part, the Ramzan package last year that Honorable Prime Minister rolled out through digital payments actually enabled 800,000 digital wallets made by women of Benazir Income Support Program, meaning poorest of the poor, creating digital wallets, becoming part of digital economy. That's what success looks like for us. Making sure that every segment is included, everybody becomes a part of it. And I'm going to end on the part that where we started, that Pakistan has become a series of auctions and privatizations, which is absolutely great news. It shows a lot of confidence and trust of our own citizens, of our own industry, business people, and also of those abroad in our economy, in our systems. And I think that's just amazing news for the country. And with this auction hopefully succeeding, it's only going to become better here on. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, all three of you, for weighing in. It's an exciting moment, and of course, the takeaway for me, and I'm sure for most of our viewers, is that this is not a single event. This is not just an auction, or this is not just a fiscal event or a telco event. It's one of those milestones where we are crossing an enablement threshold upon which so much more can be built and is being built. There is stuff happening from the government's perspective, from the private sector's perspective, and especially new economies. There has to be so much work that has to be done in agriculture, education, and healthcare. And actually, in these areas, we are a little behind, and it will not happen without technology. But the good thing is, with all of these tech layers in place, a lot of leapfrogging can happen the way it has happened for us in other sectors. So let's all hope and wish for those positive outcomes. Shaza, thank you so much. Aamir, thank you so much. Jeanette, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And to all our viewers, thank you for tuning in. And do keep following us. Do send us your comments on Pakistan and Counting.